In a small but lively compound nestled in the bustling heart of Lagos, 19-year-old Ijeoma had become the pride of her family. The narrow walls of their modest bungalow could hardly contain the waves of joy that erupted the day she received the email. She had won a full scholarship to study biomedical sciences at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. Her mother, Mama Nkechi, burst into praise songs, tears rolling down her face. Ijeoma's younger siblings danced around the compound while neighbors peered over the fence, clapping and offering their congratulations. It was a miracle, one that only came once in a generation, especially to a family struggling to make ends meet. But not everyone smiled that day. In the far corner of the crowd stood Auntie Ego, Mama Nkechi's cousin. She clapped like everyone else, but her eyes did not join in. Her daughter, Amaka, had applied for the same scholarship. When her rejection email arrived, Auntie Ego had torn it up and burned it before Amaka could even read the full message. As the days went by, preparations for Ijeoma's journey moved with unstoppable joy. Neighbors donated what they could, a suitcase here, some second-hand sweaters, a pair of leather boots. Mama Nkechi sold her gold wedding ring to help buy Ijeoma a decent winter coat. The entire community was invested in her success. The night before her departure, the compound held a small send-off. There was jollof rice, fried fish, and Fanta. Ijeoma sat at the center in her long braids and navy blue Ankara dress, smiling with dreams behind her eyes. She thanked everyone with a soft voice, promising to make them proud. That night, when the lights had dimmed and the drums had quieted, Auntie Ego slipped into the backyard with a small calabash in her hands. Inside was a mixture of camphor, ashes, and a tightly rolled piece of Ijeoma's admission letter. She whispered incantations in a voice that didn't sound like her own. At the peak of the ritual, she spat 3 times into the calabash and buried it behind the pawpaw tree. "You will go far, Ijeoma," she muttered with a twisted grin. "But your stars will never shine brighter than my Amakas." Ijeoma's first few weeks in Edinburgh were surreal. The cobbled streets, the heavy gray skies, the strange accents, it all felt like walking through a dream. She made friends quickly, dazzled her professors with her brilliance, and even got invited to speak at a student-led medical innovation conference. But then, things began to change. At first, it was subtle. She would forget things, her lab login password, the names of her classmates, the room number for her lectures. She blamed it on jet lag and the overwhelming culture shock. Then came the dreams. Dark ones. She would wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, having seen a faceless woman calling her name from a riverbank. The woman's voice was familiar. Nigerian. Angry. Sleep-deprived and anxious, Ijeoma started missing classes. Her grades dropped. She would find herself walking in circles on campus, unable to remember where she was going. Her friends grew concerned. They suggested she see a doctor. Or perhaps a therapist. But Ijeoma knew what was wrong. Someone, had followed her from home. One night, as the wind howled outside her dorm window and she clutched her Bible in shaking hands, her phone buzzed. It was a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. It was a picture of the pawpaw tree in her compound. And beneath it, a freshly disturbed patch of earth. Ijeoma dropped her phone. Her breath caught in her throat as the edges of the room seemed to blur. The pawpaw tree. The exact tree that stood behind their compound in Lagos, the one she had climbed as a child, the one Mama Nkechi always warned her never to sit under at night. Now someone had sent her a picture of it. With fresh soil. It couldn't be coincidence. Shaking, she picked up her phone again, her fingers trembling. She tapped on the number. No profile picture. No name. Just 2 gray ticks. She typed quickly. "Who is this?" No reply. Her roommate, Casey, walked in humming, saw Ijeoma's pale face, and paused. "Are you okay?" Ijeoma tried to speak, but her voice came out dry. I need some air." She fled the room and wandered into the cold night, the Scottish wind whipping her face. She didn't care. Her thoughts were louder than the wind. Someone had done something to her. She needed answers. Not from doctors. Not from counselors. She needed to talk to someone who understood. She called Grandma Ozoemena in Owerri. The old woman answered on the 3rd ring, her voice cracking with age but sharp with wisdom. "Ijeoma." "My star girl." You are calling me in the middle of the night. Are you safe? No, Mama, Ijeoma whispered. Something is wrong. I don't know what, but I can feel it. I'm losing myself. There was silence for a long while. Then Grandma asked, Have you dreamt of water? Ijeoma's knees buckled. She slid to the cold ground. Yes. A river. A woman calling my name. Every night. Another pause. My child, the old woman said softly, your feet may be in Oyabo land, but your spirit is still walking barefoot through the village. Someone has tied your destiny to the river. You are under a spell. Ijeoma started sobbing. Mama, who would do this to me? Grandma's voice turned grave. I have warned your mother to be careful of blood that smiles too wide. Not all family wishes you well. Can it be undone? Ijeoma asked. Yes, Grandma Ozoemena said. But not from there. You must come home. Back in Lagos, Auntie Ego poured palm oil into a blackened clay pot and dropped 3 dry leaves into it. Amaka sat beside her, cross-legged, staring at the fire. She's fading already, Ego said with a sly smile. Her mother shouldn't have raised her like a peacock in front of chickens. Amaka said nothing, but her face was a storm of envy and regret. From a small wooden box, Auntie Ego removed a second item, Ijeoma's old photograph from her WAEC result celebration, folded at the edges and laced with charcoal. She will return, Ego whispered, but not as the star they sent away. She'll return like a rain cloud with no rain. She tossed the photo into the pot. 2 weeks later, Ijeoma was back in Nigeria. Her professors thought she was taking emergency leave. Her friends didn't know what to think. She didn't care. As soon as her feet touched Nigerian soil, the dreams stopped. But something else replaced them, whispers. In the marketplace, at the airport, on the bus ride home, whispers in Igbo she didn't fully understand. Old women staring too long. Children turning to look at her as if sensing something off. She arrived home to her mother's warm embrace. But the joy was short-lived. That very night, the compound's dog began barking at her window. Non-stop. At 3 a.m., she opened her eyes and saw a dark shadow at the foot of her bed. She screamed. Mama Nkechi rushed in with a lantern. There was no one there. Ijeoma, her mother whispered, holding her tightly, we must go see Grandma Ozoemena at first light, before they call your name again. The next morning, they set off for Owerri, dusty roads winding between red earth and thick forests. But unknown to them, back in Lagos, Auntie Ego had already prepared the final charm. One that would ensure Ijeoma never reached the old woman alive. Because once the old one began the ritual of revelation, the truth would no longer hide. And if the truth came to light, Auntie Ego's own house might crumble from the inside out. The old Toyota bus rattled and groaned as it climbed a winding hill on the way to Owerri. Ijeoma sat beside her mother, her head pressed against the window. The trees blurred past, but her mind was elsewhere, tangled in questions she didn't know how to ask out loud. What had she done to deserve this? Why her? Behind them sat a man with a weathered face and a Bible in his lap. He stared at Ijeoma for a long time, his brows furrowed in quiet thought. When Mama Nkechi caught his gaze, she gave a polite nod. Good morning, sir. But the man didn't smile. He leaned forward and whispered, Your daughter carries more than luggage, madam. She is being followed. Ijeoma turned slowly. What did you say? The man's eyes softened. I dreamt of a girl with a silver star above her head and snakes at her feet. I didn't know I'd meet her this morning. Mama Nkechi clutched her daughter's hand. Who are you? My name is Brother Chigozie, he said. Evangelist. I see things sometimes, but I only speak when I'm told to. Ijeoma's heart pounded. What do you see now? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached into his coat and handed her a folded handkerchief. Keep this with you. You'll need it tonight. They arrived in Owerri just before sunset. Grandma Ozoemena's home was a small mud brick house hidden behind a wall of thick banana trees. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the scent of burning herbs filled the air. The old woman was waiting at the gate. Ijeoma, she said, not smiling. Come. There is no time. Inside, Her living room had been cleared. Mats lined the floor. A chalk circle had been drawn around a stool that sat in the center, and beside it, a bowl of river water, a bottle of palm oil, and 7 white cowries. Ijeoma knelt inside the circle. Grandma began to chant. She dipped a feather into the river water and touched it to Ijeoma's forehead. The room grew colder. The air thickened. The flame from the kerosene lamp flickered violently. Then, the bowl of water began to swirl. Images appeared. The pawpaw tree. The calabash. A woman's hand, dark-skinned, wearing a red coral bracelet, burying something beneath the roots. Ijeoma gasped. "That's her. That's Auntie Ego." The bowl turned murky, then clear again, now showing a vision of Ijeoma lying in a hospital bed, hooked to tubes, her eyes wide open but empty. Grandma Ozoemena's voice cracked. "If the final charm is not broken tonight, that vision becomes your future." Mama Nkechi clutched her chest, weeping. "What do we do?" Grandma stood. "The river spirit has been invoked against her. We must go to the sacred stream, tonight, to reclaim her soul." But far away in Lagos, Auntie Ego was ready. She stood in her room surrounded by black candles. Amaka sat silently on the floor, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, please. This is enough," Amaka whispered. "We don't need to ruin her life to fix mine." Auntie Ego's eyes flashed. "You know nothing of the cost of failure. Do you think they would have looked at you twice with her still shining like a star?" She pulled out a final item, a piece of Ijeoma's scarf, knotted and soaked in oil. She held it over the flame. As it began to burn, a sudden gust of wind slammed the window open, and all the candles went out at once. The mirror on the wall cracked with a sharp snap. Auntie Ego froze. A shadow loomed in the corner of the room. Not quite human. Not quite spirit. It spoke with a voice like rustling leaves. "You have gone too far." Back in Owerri, the forest path to the sacred stream was narrow and silent. Ijeoma walked barefoot, guided by Grandma's chants and Brother Chigozee's murmured prayers. The moon above was full, casting silver light across the trees. As they reached the edge of the water, Ijeoma stepped in. The stream rippled as if recognizing her. She knelt, holding the handkerchief Brother Chigozee had given her. "Call your name," Grandma said. Ijeoma's voice trembled. "Ijeoma Eze, daughter of Nkechi, granddaughter of Ozoemena. I call myself back." A burst of wind tore through the trees. The stream glowed faintly. Then, from beneath the surface, a pale hand reached up and grabbed her ankle. Ijeoma screamed. Grandma shouted, "Do not leave the circle. Speak your name again. Ijeoma Eze. I am not yours to take." The hand pulled harder. Water splashed everywhere. The forest thundered with whispers. Suddenly, the handkerchief in her palm burned hot. It burst into golden flame, and the grip on her leg vanished. Silence. The stream calmed. The forest fell still. Grandma let out a long sigh. "It is done, for now." But Brother Chigozee frowned. "She's safe," he said. "But the one who sent this, she has woken something older than her charms. Something that now wants repayment." Far away, Auntie Ego awoke screaming. There were scratch marks across her arms. Her mouth was full of sand. And in the corner of her room, a woman made of river water watched silently, her face slowly forming into Ijeoma's. For 3 days after the cleansing at the sacred stream, Ijeoma rested in Grandma Ozoemena's home. The nightmares stopped. Her memory returned. She could finally sleep, deeply and dreamlessly, for the first time in weeks. But on the 3rd night, Grandma woke up in a cold sweat. She had dreamt of a funeral. Not Ijeoma's. Not Auntie Ego's. But hers. She didn't tell Ijeoma. Not yet. In Lagos, Auntie Ego's house had turned cold. Visitors avoided it. The birds that once perched on her roof no longer came. Her daughter Amaka refused to speak to her. At night, Ego would hear dripping water, even when no taps were open. And every mirror in her home now showed her reflection, weeping. She went to consult a powerful dibia, a spiritualist known only as Izina. His shrine was deep within the mangrove swamps of Badagry. He examined her without touching her. Just stared. "You have done what many fear," he said slowly. "You pulled down a rising star from the sky." "I want her light gone completely," Anti-Ego hissed. "If she rises again, all that I've worked for will crumble." Ijeoma raised a wrinkled hand. "And so it shall. But the spirit you summoned to darken her path, it now asks for a new offering." "What offering?" she whispered. Ijeoma looked at her with hollow eyes. "It wants your daughter." Back in Owerri, Ijeoma sat under the pawpaw tree behind Grandma's hut. Her fingers ran over a journal she had started, not for school, but to document her strange experience. She was halfway through writing when she noticed the tree's bark was cracked open at the base. Something shiny stuck out. She dug with her fingers and uncovered a charm, wrapped in red cloth, bones inside, and tied with a string soaked in black oil. "Grandma!" she cried out. The old woman examined it and shook her head. "This one wasn't placed by your auntie." Ijeoma blinked. "Then who?" "I believe you were marked from childhood," she said. "This is not recent. Someone tried to block your destiny years ago. What ego did simply activated what was already there." "Then how have I made it this far?" Ijeoma asked. Grandma Ozoemena smiled softly. "Because you were always covered. Your father, God rest his soul, buried your placenta in holy ground. He was warned in a dream the night you were born." Ijeoma stared at the charm in her hand, horrified. "So, I was never safe." "No," Grandma said, touching her shoulder. "You were always fought, but always protected." That night, a firefly circled Ijeoma's head as she slept. It buzzed gently into her dreams. And this time, someone spoke to her. A voice calm and deep, like a slow-moving river. "You must go back, child. Your journey does not end in Owerri. Your light was meant for distant lands, but now you carry sight. Use it, or lose it." She awoke gasping. And in that moment she knew. The forces that fought her weren't just about jealousy. Something older feared her success. Something that thrived in keeping girls like her small, silent, and forgotten. Meanwhile, in Badagry, Anti-Ego had a decision to make. Ijeoma placed 2 bowls before her, one with goat blood, the other with river water. She had to choose. If she drank from the blood, she could offer up Amaka and complete the covenant. If she drank the water, the spirit would take her. She reached out with a shaking hand. But Amaka, watching from behind the shrine's wall, had already made her decision. She ran. At sunrise, Mama Nkechi received a phone call. It was Amaka. Crying. Begging. "Ijeoma needs to know. It's not over. Mama, she's trying again. But this time, not through charms. She's trying through people. People in high places." "Where are you, Amaka?" Nkechi asked. "I'm coming to Owerri. But they're following me. I have documents. Voice recordings. Proof of everything. Tell Ijeoma she has to finish what she started. Because it's not just her anymore." Static cut the line. Hours later, a black SUV pulled up outside Grandma Ozoemena's compound. Inside sat 2 men in suits. One of them stepped out, holding an envelope. "For Miss Ijeoma Ease," he said, handing it over. "From the Nigerian Education Board." Ijeoma frowned. "But I haven't even applied for reinstatement." The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You will. We're offering you something even better. A new scholarship. Full ride. No interviews. Just sign." Inside the envelope was a contract, and a flight ticket to the University of Aberdeen. Ijeoma looked up at the men, and for a brief second their shadows didn't match their bodies. One of them had no shadow at all. She stepped back. "I'll think about it," she said carefully. As they drove away, she turned to her grandmother. "They're changing tactics now." Grandma Ozoemena nodded. "Spiritual warfare is like chess, child. When the Dark Queen fails, they send the bishops." Ijeoma tightened her grip on the envelope. "Then it's time I learn how to play." Far away, in the heart of a shrine older than any temple, A council of unseen forces whispered among themselves. The girl had survived. She had seen. She had spoken her name in the river. Now, she must not speak it again on the mountain, because if she did, others would hear, and their reign over silence would be over. The next morning, the compound in Owerri was filled with a tense silence. Grandma Ijeoma sat under the mango tree stringing cowries into a necklace, her face heavy with thought. Ijeoma stared at the envelope again, the scholarship to Aberdeen lying like a trap wrapped in gold. Everything in her spirit screamed that it was wrong. "I don't want to run any more," she said suddenly. "If I take that offer, I'll be watched, controlled, used." Grandma Ijeoma looked up slowly. "Then you already know what to do." Ijeoma nodded. "I need to speak. Not just for me, but for every girl they've tried to silence." That evening, Amaka arrived. Dirty, exhausted, eyes red from crying. She collapsed into Ijeoma's arms. "I recorded everything," she whispered. Voice notes of Mama. Her meetings. She even bribed a man inside the scholarship board to cancel your original offer. It was all her doing. She handed Ijeoma a flash drive. "I was jealous once," Amaka said, tears streaming. "But I never wanted this. I never wanted to become part of this darkness." Ijeoma hugged her tightly. "You didn't. You just got caught in its web." They sat with Grandma as the stars rose above them, and together they made a plan. 3 days later, Ijeoma walked into the offices of a national television station in Lagos, armed with Amaka's recordings, Grandma's old journal, and the truth. At first, the producers hesitated. The story was powerful, but dangerous. The people implicated weren't just spiritual saboteurs. They were part of a network that suppressed brilliant youths through manipulation, envy, and fear. But Ijeoma was fearless. "If you air this," she said to the producer, "many more will come forward. I'm not the only one." And she was right. The interview aired at 8 p.m. sharp on a Friday night. Ijeoma sat calmly in a blue dress, the Nigerian flag behind her, the words, "Broken Chains, a Scholar's True Story," flashing across the screen. She spoke of the charm, the pawpaw tree, the hands from the river, the scholarship sabotage, the spiritual forces. She did not hold back. And as her voice traveled across the nation, something began to shift. In homes and villages across Nigeria, other young women sat up straight. Others began to speak. Messages poured in. "This happened to me. My aunt tried to stop me too. I thought I was cursed." That same night, Auntie Ego packed a bag and tried to flee to Benin Republic. But her car never made it. Eyewitnesses said they saw her swerving off the bridge just before midnight, screaming at someone no one else could see. When divers retrieved her from the water, she was alive but changed. She couldn't speak. Her eyes stared past everyone. And in her hand, she clutched a broken cowrie necklace. Weeks later, Ijeoma was reinstated into her original scholarship, this time with full public support. Not just to Edinburgh, but to speak at a global youth summit in Geneva, Switzerland, about spiritual and psychological abuse in education systems. She stood before world leaders, academics, and students. Her voice was clear, her accent proudly Nigerian, her words like fire wrapped in silk. "Many girls in Africa don't just fight poverty," she said. "They fight shadows, in their homes, their communities, even their families. But I am proof that you can survive the shadow and still shine." The room gave her a standing ovation. And somewhere in the spirit realm, the river woman who once reached for her smiled and turned away, her debt now settled, her hold broken. Ijeoma returned home a year later to thunderous celebration. No longer just a scholar. She had become a voice, a symbol, a warrior. And as she stood beneath the once-cursed pawpaw tree, now blooming wildly with fruit, she whispered to the wind, "Ijeoma is, daughter of Nkechi, granddaughter of Ijeoma. I was sent to rise, and I will rise for all of us." Inspired by true fears, true faith, and the untold resilience of African daughters. Dear listeners, please like, comment your thoughts in the comment section and share for more stories like this one.